to the Edge television broadcast. My name is Daniel Lott. Got a great guest coming up for you this evening. John B. Wells will be with the Edge television broadcast tonight. If you've got questions for John B. Wells, go to the edgeam.com website. Click on the Fast Blast link on the left side of the website, the green glass link, or you can join him in the live chat going on now. For those of you new to the program, you join in the live chat, you get an exclusive shout-out. Your name that appears on the right side of the upgraded, may I say, upgraded live chat there. You get an exclusive shout-out, and your name will be impregnated into the annals of history. Because this show makes history every Saturday night as we discover the truth together. Sometimes guests at the last moment put their headset on. Here we go. John B. Wells.
Hello there.
Hey, good evening. Daniel Lott from the Edge television broadcast.
Hello, Daniel Lott. How are you?
Well, I'm trying to stay cool here in the Midwest heat, but it's not as hot as it is out west. Of course, I also have, but you know what? I get some air going by as the drones come by, John. They keep me cool here at the program.
Yes, a little fanning from the little drone fanning. Yeah, I got you.
All right. Well, John B. Wells, welcome to the program. I'm a big fan of yours. Followed you for a number of years, and I'm very appreciative of the fact you coming on this broadcast tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. There are a lot of events going out there. And by the way, I want to congratulate you on your new Caravan to Midnight program there. We have a link in your bio section of the website there, and we'll have it in our background many times this evening as we go and talk. But for those of you, those of our audience listening and viewing who are not familiar with you, would you like to give a little bit of introduction to yourself?
Well, let's see. After about 25 years, after less than 4 years in actual radio, beginning in about 1978. I went into voiceovers for 25 years, and then an opportunity came up to guest host a Coast to Coast AM program in December 2005, and I did that, and then not, as I recall, not much in 2006, maybe one more, but then nothing else happened until I'm thinking around October 2008, and then virtually nothing at all in 2009 that I remember. But in 2010. They invited me back to do some more, and then in 2011, then it really started rolling. And at the end of 2011, they asked me if I would like to do the Saturday night show, and of course my response was, "Let me think about it." Okay.
Wow. All right.
And that was just it was a dream come true. It was excellent. I had so much fun, and then got to do what I usually do, which is break the format a little bit, just if maybe not bust the system, but bend the system a little bit. And so I got to play some great music that's just really not heard on any of the normal outlets. And, well, you need to kind of make your music a little more mainstream. I'm like, okay. And of course I wouldn't really mainstream, what the mainstream, which mainstream was not specified. So I just kind of made up my own mainstream, and it worked out pretty well. Had a nice mix from about, 50 years of music to choose from. It was more than that, actually, because over the Pearl Harbor Memorial Weekend, I would like to call it the commemorative weekend rather than the Memorial Weekend.
All right.
We reached back into the 40s and played some songs from that era, and it was just so much fun, I can't tell you. But then the censors showed up. The men in drab showed up, and it was like, you need to kind of pull back on these subjects. Mm-hmm. And my response was, well, why would you do that? And, well, I know that we're in probably the most dangerous period of our nation's history since its inception. But, need for you to pull it back a little bit, because we don't want to be partisan. We don't want to lose any sponsors or listeners. Like, well, okay, I'll do my best. So I just quit mentioning our current president's name altogether. In fact, I told guests that would come on the program, not all of whom, really the majority of whom, I did not book. But they came through Premier's apparatus, and that was fine. But it's sort of like a guy said, if you take this job and you make a mistake, that's your problem. If you have a partner and he makes a mistake, that's your problem too. So in the same way, I might not mention our president by name or even really point any fingers at him, contrivedly so. But then I got to where I would have to tell the guests, do not speak his name.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, on the air. Mm-hmm. And they go, okay. And but then, of course, if somebody wanted to bash the other side of the aisle, well, that was completely okay. And
figure.
So I'm like, okay. Well, so I just kept pushing the envelope until, I suppose, I mean, looking back on it now, I'm rationalizing what must have happened. I guess I continued to push the envelope until somebody had just had enough and went, okay, that's it. We're going to go a different direction. I was like, okay, so am I. So it was fine. I mean, I still love all those people up there, that I got to work with by remote. Never met any of them, in person. Never.
Really?
But, no, not even once. Only the former operations manager who wanted to make a change, and shortly thereafter he was relieved. And maybe you can imaginarily extrapolate what that change might have been. So yeah, he was removed after 15 years there with Premier, 11 of them with Coast. And then it was all down, as they say, it was all downhill after that.
Wow.
So that's my story.
And you're sticking to it?
Yeah, I'm going to have to. That's what happened.
well, unless you get one of these guys that have these time machines, and maybe you can borrow it from them, go back in time and rewrite the history, your own history.
Well, the only way I could do that, Mr. Odd, is to have towed the line, kept my mouth shut, and just taken the paycheck and just stayed in that groove. And that's just really not me, you know.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's why you have garnered such respect out there. And for the people that are seeking the truth, or alternative news specifically, certainly the mainstream media is corporatized, and nobody in the right mind really could construe that there's truth coming from them. So you have by sticking to your core beliefs, evidently, is what you've done, and that really you have a persona there and a presence that inspires people, and most of us do that, try to do things like that. And I know you're probably humble about it, but there are people that watch and seen how you responded and have taken note. And there are differences that go in, that affect, these differences affect people. They see that, and it emboldens them to do a little bit. So that's a really positive thing. And we're talking about how can we change things. Well, each of us are given our talents and abilities, and when we stand up for what's true and right, then I always say this, that you can't go in a room and turn on the darkness. So it sounds to me like you've turned on the light and you've kept that light switch on, and others have tried to turn it off. Well, John, the way the show rolls, we have people that are watching the show, people that are listening to it in low bandwidth, and there are those that send in questions through the Fast Flash, which, by the way, I stole that from Art Bell. And
right.
Then they also,
why not?
They're also in the live chat, and they're sending a question. So here we got a question right here, and here we go. It says, John, do you know that Alex Jones says that you quit your gig on Coast to Coast rather than being dismissed? That's what this writer is saying about that issue.
Well, I don't know where they got that, but that's in stark conflict with the reality of things. I didn't quit at all. Period. End of story. I did not quit. In fact, I was wondering how I was going to do my own show during the day, which was not intended to be a radio show for broadcast. In fact, I felt like the material we were going to discuss on Caravan to Midnight was probably not suitable for broadcast, simply because the subjects might be, too controversial. I know that none of the, after that, after leaving Coast, somebody was taking a look around to see if any of the bigger corporations might want to pick me up. And of course I knew what that answer was, but I said, yeah, go ahead, give it a shot. But there were no takers there. But I was really wondering how I was entering my third year of doing just the Saturday night slot, plus whatever extra nights they wanted me to fill in for Mr. Norrie. And I was wondering how I was going to do this during the day, and then do a third year of just Saturday nights. Because when you keep a daytime schedule, I'm sure many of your listeners know this, and you probably know it too, Daniel, that you can't really do anything during the day on Saturday, because if you do, you'll never make it till 0400. the next morning. You're not going to make it.
That's
and
true.
so your Saturday's gone, your Sunday's gone, then on Monday you're really a zombie. That's the long and the short of that. So I didn't know, but they took care of that problem for me.
Yeah.
So
Right
I don't
on.
have to worry about it.
Well, that sort of reminds me of was it the Obama administration? Now, I'm going to name names. I have no problem there, and I know you're free to name names too as well now. So that's great. But what they said that they're going to help you out of a job so you can go write poetry now. As a response to the losing your job because of Obamacare. So
Yeah, oh yeah,
they help.
yeah. That's a good point. I could have wound up sailing, writing a book, and sailing the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I mean, that's the standard answer people give when they're leaving a position of any noteworthiness. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to write and see the world.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
All right. Here's Tom Jones in the UK. He wants to know, which interview do you remember was the best which one do you consider was the best that you interviewed?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer because there were many interviews that were the best of that type of interview and that particular subject matter. But the one that, I don't know, the one that just stands out in my mind is being able to talk to the late, great Ray Bradbury.
Wow.
That to me was, that was the second dream come true. The first one coming true was being on Coast to Coast at all, but being able to interview Ray was just beyond, my imagination. And sure enough, Lisa Lyon called up and said, "I've got Ray Bradbury for you." And I let out a whoop, a real high pitched one, which is pretty tough for me to do, but it was there. It sounded like a real Native American war cry. I think it was pretty authentic,
Wow. All right. Here's a question from Rich and Rags in the live chat. Ask this question: are you ever going to have Art Bell on Caravan to Midnight as a guest?
Wouldn't we all like to know the answer to that one? I'd love to talk to Mr. Bell. I think that would be fabulous. I don't know if he wants to. I've never spoken to him. I've never exchanged an email with him, but I seem to detect a little bit of empathy toward me when on his website there was an article that said it was titled "Art Bell Tolls" for John B. Wells. And I thought, well, now this is pretty nice. This was just a little tip of the helmet. And, I'm certainly not going to rule it out. And if I ever got an opportunity to talk to Mr. Bell, I certainly would make that happen. So we'll see, as Zen Master says.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, and we have this question. By the way, I've got questions in the fast blast here. Those questions are multiple paragraphs that will not be read. They're going to have to be succinct and to the point. So let's see if we can get to one that is succinct and to the point. Bob in New York wants to know, can you put a date when you're going to have a YouTube channel instead of episodes, or in conjunction with episodes?
Well, right now we've got all the shows archived on our own site, and several of them have been lifted and then published on YouTube on various channels. There's some people picking up many shows. They've got Caravan, they've got Douglas Hagman's, Hagman and Hagman, their reports there. Coast to Coast is up there. A whole bunch of stuff is up there. And look, it makes no difference to me really outside of, harming someone, how somebody makes their money or what they do for their business. But And while I do want to disseminate the information, I don't want a disservice done to our subscribers who support the program. Without our subscribers, we can't do a program. It's too expensive. Mm-hmm. I went from a staff of me and one person to a staff of me and like 7 people, and we need more people. And so, if it's a private closed YouTube channel, then I think it actually already exists, but we stream through, I want to say it's Ustream right now. And that's how they're played. And all of the shows are archived at, caravantomidnight.com. So I don't really know how to answer that question. Somebody's got YouTube. There are several people that have YouTube channels up now that are running the program, but we don't want to. We're not trying to be mean, but we got to take them down because it's not helping anything.
Yeah, that's one of the things we need to do. I was talking in my sort of ranting points earlier about the fact that going to the Bundy Ranch situation where people got together. If there is such a thing that an opportunity the internet provides, it is for people to get together and connect. So really, if there's sort of issues out there that are bringing down the message or convoluting the message or the thrust in the platform that you have. That I would agree with you. You have to do that, and you can be nice about it. But in the end, you have a voice, and whether you like it or not, you're sort of a leader to many folks, and it's just the way it is when your face is out there. All right, here's a question, or here's from a coach in California, John. He says, is turning over the internet to another group in any way related to silencing shows that tell the truth by circumventing the First Amendment?
Let me see if I can address that. I'm not really clear on what the question is.
Well, I'll rewrite that question. Is the fact that the United States government is turning over control of the internet?
Oh, gotcha.
Is it?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Look, I just interviewed this wonderful lady named Lorraine Moret, Leuren, last name Moret, and she said something that I'd long suspected. As I look at Vladimir Putin's behavior, look at his image, look at what he does, look how his country is running now, and I think I contrast what's happening over there right now with what's happening over here, and then to hear Lorraine Moret say this, I just had an so moment, which is that by design, Russia is beginning to look more and more, and is in fact becoming like the United States we knew of now decades ago, before the assassination of John Kennedy. Mm-hmm. It was a lot less dirty. Still stuff was going on, but still we had a quality of life, and we had we had some social mores that were being observed by certainly the majority of the population. You always have the gangster squads, and you always have the criminal element. That's just how it is. But government was at least not so just outrageously, I don't even know, I can't even put the words together right now, just so completely in your face, and what are you going to do about it? Yeah. In their shenanigans and the banking system and everything else. All of those things I think were put into place, and it's insidious. It didn't happen immediately. It took a long time for these things to become as visible as they are now. But the long and the short of it is Russia's becoming more like America, and America is turning into the Soviet Union, and this is by design, according to Lorraine Moret. Mm. And I must say that looking at certain aspects of life in America today, and as I perceive life in Russia to be, although I'm not a Russian, I don't live there, so I don't really know. I just have my perceptions and the intel I can gather. It seems to be true. I mean, what sense does it make to have this massive surveillance grid? Massive surveillance grid, but you got an open border to the south. I mean, where is the rationale here? Mm-hmm. There isn't one.
Right. Well, I would concur with that analogy there. Even last year, Vladimir Putin said they were giving hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuild churches that they had destroyed during the atheistic time and under Lenin. And so it almost seems our own guy had to go over there and defect because he was telling the truth of what the NSA was doing over there. So there does seem to be a role reversal. But going back to the internet point of it, the way the government seems to operate is instead of abiding by the Constitution, they'll say, for instance, taking the gun issue, say, well, okay, you have, there's that pesky Second Amendment, which they can't stand. But the way they get around that is they regulate the ammunition, they cause you to get a license, they make you go through training, they investigate you, they hack into your computer, all these things around that, to where you finally just either give up or you can't afford it. But they really don't mess with your Second Amendment. So they say, well, we abide by the Constitution. Now, when it comes to free speech, they could say that we're not messing with your First Amendment right to say whatever you want to on the internet because, but the United Nations, they don't recognize our Constitution. So conveniently, they won't say that we've been abridging your First Amendment rights, but they've given it to another organization who has no compunction and is under no constraint to abide by our Constitution. So they get that aim by making this move.
Well, yeah, I think the United Nations is poison for this country. My question is, who do these people think they are, that we should pay any attention to them whatsoever, and we should not. In fact, we should throw them out of this country. And if they want to exist at all, then put them on one of these big ships that we've now mothballed and taken out of service as we strip our military down to pre-World War II levels. Now, that could be because we don't really need them anymore, because there are things going on in the military-industrial complex that absolutely defy belief, but they are, in fact, they're real. But I digress. Put them on a ship and let it be like the League of Nations was going to be. Just sail around going from port to port, wave at everybody, offer everybody a Coke and a smile, and then leave. But get out of here. And if these idiots have any idea, well, look at everywhere they go. Everywhere the United Nations goes, the chaos is soon to follow. The rape and the murder is soon to follow. And that's just how it is. If you look into it deeply enough, it's like I tell people, you don't believe me, you can look it up. It's not good. The United Nations, as far as I'm concerned, this is our country. You better not show up. I can tell you, you better not show up in Texas with your blue helmets on. There won't be enough left of you to put in the blue helmet to ship back. Just don't even do it. Now,
wow.
Is it possible that we can resist? Yeah, it's possible. But as the scenario unfolds, the resistance may not take the form that people might think that it would. In the same way that I think Barack Obama is one of the best things that ever happened to this country. Just not for the reason someone might think a person would say that.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I think we've gotten a nice little taste of socialism, and we even have had a glimpse into the possibility that we may actually go all the way to communism. Socialism just being communism light. But before we leave it completely, as far as the internet is concerned and government censorship of it. Yeah, there was an article recently published that said, look, you're getting in a twist over nothing. It's no big deal. Well, look, anytime there's the possibility that something can happen, pretty much the odds will compel that it does happen. And Germany has decided, along with a couple of other countries that are talking about it too, that they're not going to have any of this NSA spying. So emails sent between citizens within German borders will be confined to Germany. And now the NSA is going, well, that could be a violation of trade laws. I mean, there is no limit to what these weenies will do to try and get their way. Just like Jeb Bush is out there now talking about how illegally coming into this country and just setting up shop here and, having lots of babies, making a big family and taking over the schools and everything else. And they are. Is an act of love. It's an act of love. Well, in my view, Jeb, the act of love would be to look across the border at America and ask the question, why is my country not like this? And then to work to make your country like America, if that's what you want. But then again, I'm thinking like an American, aren't I?
Yeah. And of course, if you think like an American, then you will certainly end up on the main core list, John. You're probably on.
Oh yeah.
By the way,
we live in weird times when to be called a patriot means something bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes one wonder who is making those rules and wants to push. This question for you, John, is found in the live chat from Curious. What do you consider to be the most pressing, important, so-called conspiracy theory that should be addressed right now?
Oh boy. Well, it would be like a Medusa with all the snakes on her head. That would be the banking cartels tied in with the drug cartels, which are all connected to the. If I had to boil it down to one thing, I would say it is banking cartels gone wild.
Whoa.
And if you and the consensus out there among the alternative media people is that this thing in Ukraine was put together by the international bankers and the banking cartel, George Soros and his ilk, because the EU is falling apart. And the UK has threatened to leave the EU. They may not dump the euro, but they want to leave the EU. And they want to pull Ukraine into the EU so that they can keep their European Union floating a bit longer. Mm-hmm. And really, I don't really blame Vlad for going, You're not taking it. You're not going to isolate us like this. I mean, I understand what he's doing. Now, that having been said, if you have any kind of visibility at all, President Obama has put into place a law which will enable this government to seize your assets if you are too vocal in your opposition to the EU seizing Ukraine. So, it's a mess, but it's okay because the more we're going to be all right as long as we don't get tired and we don't give up, because the fighting's not going to get easier as we get closer to capturing that hill, so to speak. It's going to get more intense as we get closer. These people are not going to go easy, and when you see all of these bankers jumping off of buildings and hanging themselves and shooting themselves in the head, like multiple times with a construction nail gun, stuff like this, with all suicide, You have to wonder, why are so many people in that particular profession suiciding themselves? Now, you got that, and then you've got an absolute epidemic of suicides in our military.
I was on Extreme Radio Society last night as a guest on theirs, and they asked me that very question: why do I think there's so many suicides in the military? And I looked at it like specifically related to this Fort Hood. When situation there, the multiple shootings at different times, militaries. The people that join the military, they want to be around guns and military equipment. They go in there with high hopes to defend their country and to defend the honor of the United States and do good around the world. And that, of course, requires armaments and various weapons and things. And many of them may have a proclivity to to collect guns and different things. So when they go to Fort Hood, they find in their military. The presence, how they are there, they're not allowed to have guns. I mean, it's like the exact opposite of what they went in for. So it's like taking the main thing that they went in for to disarm them. Then I said there is so much psychological training and sensitivity training going on with the military that in many cases is at odds with their core beliefs as an American, that is to defend the Constitution and various laws and not to carry out assaults on American citizens, those type of things. Then you add to it fluoridated water and who knows what's in the inoculations that every military personnel gets. They get more than anybody on stateside and civilian-wise. You mix that all up together, it's no wonder that we don't have more suicides than what they have. But this is probably aiding the government's plan as they are working on some sort of purge. There's there's some sort of purge going on in the military now. So this just seems like it plays right into their plan to carry that out.
Well, yes, and sometimes these things are, I can't imagine that these people are that smart. Maybe they are. But sometimes once you start an initiative rolling, you begin to pick up collateral assistance that actually is not by design, but it's as a result of your main agenda, your main initiative. So it could be that this is just a collateral benefit for those who are trying to destroy our military. And a senator has already said there's a deliberate plan by the president to collapse the law enforcement system. And so maybe there's a concerted effort being made to collapse our military. And it would not surprise me. Look, we don't think in these terms. I remember having to ask a guy, what do you mean? I don't get this. And he goes, what I'm telling you is, somebody will report something stolen, report their pistol stolen. We were talking about guns this particular time. He goes, and then they'll take that stolen pistol and they'll go sell it at the gun show and they'll collect double. See? And I went, well, I never saw that coming. And he said, well, that's because you don't think in those terms. And I went, well, yeah, I guess. We don't think in the terms that the people who are committing these heinous and egregious acts against us, we don't think like they do. I mean, it's almost like cops who start off, really wanting to serve, wanting to make a difference, but some of them get pulled into this goo of crime and so forth, and by the time they've been in there 20 years, what started off to be fighting crime turned into being a criminal themselves because they can't even swim in those waters unless they have a little bit of criminal character to them. I'm not saying all cops are like that. I'm saying some of them have experienced this. Just like Serpico, that story about Serpico. He wanted to be a real cop, but he was in a dirty department. So guess what? They tried to kill him because he would not become a criminal. And so maybe that's what's going on. Maybe some of the suicides that are going on in our military, may God bless them and keep them. Maybe it's because they realize that they started off thinking that they're trying to protect our freedom here at home, and they find out that the greatest threat to our freedom here at home is here at home, and that this is simply a banker war, and that's all there is to it. I mean, military men and women aren't stupid. They can think that they'll do a job, but they still have feelings, they still have families, they still have futures that they'd like to get to. There's just not all about seeing the arms and legs fly and blood and guts. That's not what they're all about, really. It's a job. And they think that it's a noble job. And some of them maybe have decided, I don't know, but maybe some of them have decided it's an ignoble job and that they got suckered into something that they really kind of wish they hadn't become a part of.
Well, for the undoing of the civilian police, it also simultaneously seems that they are militarizing the police. And this is what happened out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the police, they had all this military-sponsored equipment with AK-47s and the heavy armament, and they descended upon the homeless guy in the national park. They say was trespassing, and the guy, he just wanted to pull the trigger. He thought this was some kind of video game, and I'm sure you saw that video.
Yeah, I thought that was just tragic watching this, but what I thought was even more disgusting was watching those two cowards there. That I would not call police officers or law enforcement officers. I'd call them pigs, and I do call them pigs. Mm-hmm. They shoot this poor guy, and then, they got their rifles trained on him because they're afraid his dead corpse it's gonna threaten the officers in some way, and it was just disgusting. I just thought it was, mm-hmm. I just thought that video should be played right next to the definition of cowardice. I mean, you're going to tell me that these big brawny cops couldn't come up there and bust somebody in the head and go, come on, you're coming with us. Come on.
Yeah.
Get out on the ground. Don't struggle or you're going to hurt more. Oh, no. They just killed him. They murdered him is what they did. Yeah. And I think they ought to be tried for murder, first degree murder, premeditated. They showed up. Everything in the book. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the most disgusting videos I've ever seen. And, people keep saying, is this the United States we live in? Well, yes, it is. And they just went further than others have. But the militarization of the police departments, it just seems that maybe those are bribes. The government will give you hundreds of thousands of dollars and it'll give you armored vehicles and assault rifles and training of all sorts, as long as you agree to the edicts of the government. You need to say surround somebody who has an unregistered gun, or maybe somebody has a cattle. Maybe one of their cows is in the wrong place. And so if the government will say to you, we'll give you all this support if you just agree with us in our mission to secure the United States.
Well, what you're seeing, Daniel, is the beginning of the death squads. Just like that kid, Kelly Thomas, out there that was crying for his father as these bastards beat him to death right there in public. Just beat him to death. And then another guy out there in California who's got his back to these people. Now, he was involved in a minor car wreck and all of that, which the cops caused. And he's standing there with his hands on the car, feet apart and all of that. And these cops just start shooting him in the back. And they've done it multiple times in Dallas and so forth. What you're seeing is the beginning of the death squad syndrome here in this country. And we better get in front of this thing, and I'm not kidding you, because it's going to be visited upon us. It already is. They're starting with the homeless people and those that are the least able to defend themselves. There's nothing that these guys did that a stun gun or a taser would not have put an end to, unless they're jacked up like Rodney King was, in which case it took a few more than stun guns and mace.
Yeah, somebody pointed out that the officer in Albuquerque who was shooting the beanbag after they shot him with the assault rifle and killed him. Maybe they should have hit him with the beanbag first and then murdered him second. But they did it vice versa, and then they sent their dog to attack the dead guy. It's just despicable. And I was wondering, were those the same German Shepherds that they have over there at the Bundy Ranch out in Nevada? And, that is something I want to talk to you about, John, that event there. Do you think that the Bureau of Land Management expected such pushback?
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely spectacular. In fact, I talked to a friend, Vince Mazer. He makes the Geiger counters that we carry. And he said, this was just really spectacular. I wish that all those people that had to spend money to get there, I wish that there was some way to establish a fund to reimburse them for their travel. I said, well, that's because you're a nice man, Vince. I don't know how we get something like that together, but I'll kick it around and I'll pass it around to people that I talk to and see what's up. But you know what? What a mess. Now, I understand Jones and InfoWars broke this story about the Chinese Harry Reid connection to Bundy's land grab. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that somebody went, listen, these cowboys aren't kidding. And those people out, those federal officers out there, pushing women around and acting like a bunch of cowards. What a bunch of trash. Look, I'm sick of this. I mean, it used to be you could call a cop and everything would be all right when he got there. Now he's liable to show up and shoot the wrong people. He's liable to kill your dog because it barked at him. Right. I mean, I've never seen behavior like this in people. However, I'll tell you what happened to me one night. You in the mood for a short story?
Let's do it.
All right. I was driving down a very busy street in Dallas, Lemon Avenue. I was coming back from a grocery store over there, and I saw this idiot. I say idiot because he was driving like an idiot, and he was in an idiotically shaped car, which makes it worse. We all know that, right? It's one thing if somebody's pulling boo-boos in traffic, but if they're in a stupid-looking car doing it, that makes it worse. He's got his lights off, and it's nighttime, so I pulled up next to him because there's a cop about 50 yards behind him. I said, hey, pal, you might want to turn your lights on because there's a cop behind you. Well, so the cop pulls me over. And in a minute, so I'm sitting there, and I gave him my licenses, and he said, I pulled you over because you didn't put on a signal. I went, okay. And I had gotten my wallet out of this bag on the seat and just handed it to him. And he said, you have your weapon on you? I went, yeah. He goes, where is it? I said, it's over in that bag right there. And he gave me this real smoldering look like, well, don't touch the weapon while you're being interviewed by an officer, like he was ready to go for it. And I said, you have nothing to fear from me, officer. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd be dead already. Oh. You know what I mean? I mean, you really would. So, I mean, let's be real here. In the meantime, 2 Suburbans full have now pulled up. And he comes back and he runs everything and blah, 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 on and on and on. Then he comes back to the window and I just looked at him and I said, hey. He said, your sticker's out of date. I said, he goes, your registration's out. And I said, well, how do you account for the fresh sticker on the windshield? And I just happened to have the registration that the sticker was peeled off of right here in the seat. And he goes, well, you need to update your information. I said, what? He said, well, they need to update. I said, well, that's not my deal. That's their job. So he's I said, may I ask you a question? And 2 questions, actually. That was one of them. He goes, yeah, what's that? I said, what's the matter? I mean, you seem kind of upset or jacked up or something. And this is what the guy said. He said, and it was this big black dude. He said, Mr. Wells, it's just so depressing. I said, what do you mean? What's depressing? And he said, well, the officer got killed over here in Arlington, and one of them got shot up down. He named some little town. He said, and then one up in Indiana. I said, Indiana? And he said, yeah. He says, it's just so depressing. I used to look forward to get to going onto the job, but it's just. I said, let me tell you something, brother. Nobody's forcing you to be a policeman. I mean, this game may not be for you. You go out there like this, and you're liable to get yourself hurt or get somebody else hurt or both. And nobody's going to look down on you if you decide that being a policeman is not for you. You're a big guy. You could do private security. You don't have to do this. But if you're going to do this, you need to go talk to somebody because you don't need to be out on the street like this. I'm just telling you, for your own safety and the safety of others, you need to think about this. And he patted my forearm, which was resting on the windowsill, and he said, I'm sorry about that comment about your pistol. I said, that's all right. I get it. Just be safe out there and keep other people safe. Remember, you're a peace officer, so keep the peace, all right? And that was the end of that. So look, I understand now. When I relayed this to a couple of just random cops that I saw at an event one time, one of them asked, you didn't happen to get his name and badge number, did you? And I said, no, I did not. I wasn't going to rat the guy out for that, but I don't know, maybe I should have, but that's just a judgment call that I made at the time. And so look, let us not forget that police officers are people too, but there are going to be some renegade idiots out there who through their conduct are going to make all the police officers look like they're all insane and just looking for somebody to kill, or not just kill, but murder. I don't mind a guy being a man of action or a woman of action that wants to get in there and knock out some criminals, go after the bad guys. But don't become a bad guy yourself, because that ain't the way, partner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my story. How you like it?
Oh, well, that's an awesome story. You were talking there, and I remembered, I was thinking about, we had Dr. Garrow on the show, Jim Garrow, and he was talking about, I'm relating to good cop, bad cop, but also now to good military officer versus a bad one. He said that there are in the ranks of the military a number of folks that are just being really quiet, and when the time comes where there needs to be pushback, that they'll come out. But right now, if they identify themselves in any way, shape, or form, they will be rapidly exited and probably sent to a mental institution by this government here. John, we have this question from Keith in Indiana. Speaking of Indiana, it says, recently we've had the MH370 flight disappearance, the Ukraine situation, Fort Hood #2, the Bundy Ranch, and many other events. Are these just a distraction for something larger? And if so, what would that be?
Well, that's a $64,000 question, isn't it? I've heard everything in the book about Flight 370, and I've heard it's landed at this base, or it's been flown to this country, or that it's been vaporized or absolutely completely destroyed. It'll certainly do till the vaporization gets here and it's down at the bottom of the ocean somewhere. But I believe that people, look, I know of pilots who have been flying, I'll just put it this way, they've been flying very, very high altitude, and later on saw photographs of the very plane they were flying taken from tens of thousands of feet above them.
Wow.
And I would submit to you that someone in the services knows exactly where that aircraft is. Now, what the hidden agenda is, I don't know. I just don't know. Do I think these events are connected? I don't know. Maybe not at this time. Mm-hmm. But you can't just decide that a thing is this way. You have to wait. And it's the hardest thing to do, is to wait, because while you're waiting, other stuff is happening. But to get to the actual truth, you may not ever get it. You may get a glimpse of it every once in a while, but it's going to be a rare and just a supreme moment of enlightenment if you get the whole truth, let alone a good bite out of the real truth. So I wish I could answer that question, but I simply can't. I don't have enough intel. I've got too much information, and right now separating the intel from the information is the real trick.
And I'm wondering if there will ever be a defining moment when all the people that search for truth and have information like that could put the puzzle together. Is it inevitable that these things will sort of just frog in the pan type situation go on to eternity, or you think there will be a defining moment when the pushback will be so great that there may be a shift back to, say, individual freedom and to normalcy and certain moral principles being installed? Or is it inevitable that the sheer weight of it will never allow that to happen?
The only thing that will keep it from becoming an inevitability is that the people are beginning to push back, and they must not get tired. They have to continue to push back. And again, as the Bundy Ranch scenarios become more frequent, where citizens pushed back, the thing is, you've got to be right. You've got to be within the law. Otherwise, it becomes an action of men and not an action of men enforcing the law. I like our government. Our government is just fine. It's some of the criminals and some of the criminally insane people within the government that need to go. Mm-hmm. So as long as the citizenry continues to wake up and continues to say, no, I'm simply not going to participate in this, and if force of arms are brought to bear against citizens in violation of constitutional law, then you push back to whatever degree is necessary to neutralize the threat. It is our duty as citizens to do this. Otherwise, we have surrendered everything. If we let that Constitution go, the rest is soon to follow. Mm-hmm. And that's just how it is. But I'll tell you this, Daniel, one of the things that absolutely, not only I have always had faith, and it is an unshakable faith, and I don't mind stating for your radio record that would be in Almighty God and the Lord Jesus the Christ. that which is written in Scripture should be adhered to, and it should be studied, and it should be understood, because my view is that the Bible is a very, very heavily coded book that covers everything from woo-woo transcendentalism to quantum physics and beyond. But it's just stated it's written in a way that doesn't really necessarily suggest that to you upon just first blush, shall we say. Evil exists, and the evil one, represented by the name Satan, does run this planet. That's it. And so we don't know what horrors await us in the future. We only know that as long as we are living this human existence, we don't know, but we can assume with a high degree of confidence that what we are experiencing here is simply a battle of good against evil. And as long as good people just lie down and do nothing, well, then evil prevails. But generally, all you have to do is push back against it, and it'll dissipate. It'll reemerge in another form, in another place, and at another time. It will never go away, not until there is an absolute quantum shift in philosophy and in character of people at large. When people decide that, well, I'd like to be a good person, but, sinning is so much fun. I just want to get a few more, good sins in there, and then I'll be good. If we can get away from that, if we can recognize the value in ourselves, we're told to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, to most people, that's a presumption that we already love ourselves. In fact, we're just totally eaten up with ourselves, so we should love our neighbor too. But I don't believe that's what that means. I believe it's love your neighbor and love yourself. Because if you love yourself, you're not going to let yourself do things that are bad for yourself. And you know what I mean? You put that spin on it, and then you have some common ground to reach out to other people. It's like old Bishop Sheen said on one of his black and white programs. If you will just allow yourself to love people, then you'll find that you actually like them. But sometimes I wonder, because of the darker forces, sometimes I wonder if the ongoing fight of good against evil isn't what keeps the whole human race going. I don't know. Sometimes it looks that way, but my blackboard's still got some room on it. I'll make notes on it and just revise my opinions as we go along. But I'm interested, and as long as people are interested, then if they're sufficiently interested, they'll engage, and they are engaging now. So that's a good thing. And one of the things that gives me hope, I went off onto faith, but the thing that gives me hope is that 65% of the people who have joined Caravan to Midnight, that's caravantomidnight.com, by the way,
very good.
They are between the ages of 18 and 35. The young people are taking up their intellectual, their practical, and their rational arms, and they're getting into these programs. I'm telling you, 65% of our viewership / listenership, 18 to 35-year-olds, and I'll tell you, that gives me hope.
It does to me as well, John. I know one of the things you're mentioning about maybe perhaps the evil is a necessary component for our existence. It reminded me of the Matrix, where the Agent Smith was telling Morpheus, he said that they tried to create a perfect world and they lost whole crops of humans, and until they interjected some misery and despair, then the humans began to flourish. So perhaps it makes us all better that way. John, we're at the top of the hour. We take a short break, maybe about a 5-minute break. I've got your website in the background. What can folks find there before we go to break?
Inexpensive subscription service, $15 for 3 months, $30 for 6, and if you want to take the plunge and do 60, then that'll get you a year. And there are about 40 programs in there now, and because we start on February 3rd, and I think they'll enjoy them, because it's the long conversation, and we don't stop except for the occasional bio break, we call them.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. All right, stay on the line there. We'll bring you back in a couple minutes.
All right, very good.
All right, everybody, you're listening to and or watching the Edge television broadcast. On our newsmaker line tonight is, of course, John B. Wells. If you missed any of this exciting broadcast, go back to the edgeam.com website, and we'll begin to play into our main player. We'll also upload the video into the Edge's YouTube channel, and we'll be podcasted as well as the high-definition video extract to be put into the guest bio section. In 2 weeks, Dr. Mitchell Gibson will be with us. He's going to be talking about miracles. And then James Arthur Janik of Feet to Fire will be with us back on this program again. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Go to the edgeam.com website. Click on the drop-down link. Click on the FastPass link on the left side of the website. Additionally, you can join them in the live chat where your questions can be posted, and Jay, our moderator, take those. Please make your questions succinct and to the point, and we'll get in as many as we can. Now, going back to our Newsmaker line. On our Newsmaker line tonight is John B. Wells. John, welcome back.
Well, thanks. Good to be back. Good to be here at all.
Okay. Well, they be taken multiple ways. Like, good to be topside, good not to have the Department of Homeland Security outside your door, so you don't have rodents in your supplies for Armageddon or anything like that. All right, we have a number of questions coming in. Let's get to a couple of those right now. This is from the Fast Blast from Arkansas, as a matter of fact. I'm sorry, this is from New Mexico. And this is just basically a comment. It says that, John, you are right about that we are not to have a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. And, of course, then it goes on to say, the wicked among us have no respect for those who fear them, and they do back down. So is it that, as we've seen with the Bundy Ranch, that I wonder if there's a larger scale thing that can be accomplished, perhaps, say, in the American Spring event that's coming in May. What do you think about that?
You're talking about Colonel Harry Riley, yeah? And his American Spring wants 10 million people up in D.C.
Yes.
I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to keep it I'll keep it on the down low, just because I'm not looking forward to a vacation, somewhere down around where they produce all those great cigars. But yeah, would that be something, or would that be something? And it very well may happen, but we're coming up on that pretty soon. I mean, it's the 12th already, so it's just a little over a month away. And I've gotten a lot of emails, a lot of letters from people, a lot of them. We get about 25 pounds of mail every day, and it's growing in volume. It's just amazing. And a lot of them are saying, I can't come up there and do that. It's like, I know. We can't get to the polls and vote. We can't seem to vote for anybody and elect anybody that's not either a Democrat or a Republican, and most of the time you can't tell them apart. So it just depends. If we can't get to the polls, how are we going to get to Washington, D.C.? Now, as you see what happened, there are about to be bodies in the street.
Whoa.
Nothing happens until there's bodies in the street up there at Bundy's Ranch. I mean, this character, this clown, some county commissioner named Tom Collins, who looks like somebody dropped him on his head when he was a baby, and he's still got that sort of stunned look on his face. He's saying that people that come down there to Nevada to support Bundy better have funeral plans in place. I mean, can you believe somebody like that would even say such a thing? So if it gets to that level, that's when I believe you could see 10 million people in D.C. But absent something that will really make people mad, I'm doubtful it'll happen. I want it to really bad, and maybe it will. So we'll keep pushing, because I know Colonel Riley's he's not going to stop. So we'll keep pushing. We'll just see how many people can take time off to go. But I'll tell you, it would make an amazing statement. If you want to get something, if you want to really accomplish some change, show up in D.C. peacefully, and don't be an idiot and bring a firearm. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. No. Do not do anything. No loading of shotguns up on the lawn. None of that. You can't do that. It has to be absolutely, I don't mean 99%, because all it takes is one loon, and there we go. It has to be 100% peaceful protest, and there has to be a demand that these people who have clearly committed flagrant disregard for the Constitution and for the rule of law need to be removed. Now, do I expect to see these people led in handcuffs from the White House and various other, the Capitol and so forth? No, but it would be a glorious sight, and it would send a message to the world that we are what we say we are. We really aren't a nation of warmongering liars and drone murdering assassins who just have no regard whatsoever for all the collateral damage we cause in furtherance of defeating terrorism. I mean, I wonder how people would feel if Mexico decided they were going to launch a drone strike into Texas or California or New Mexico or Arizona, and because they want to take out a really troublesome cell of drug cartel bad guys And but they got him all right. But they kind of killed some school children there at a nearby school, and that's just. I wonder how we would react to something like that. I don't think that it would be taken very well here. In fact, I think the very next thing that would happen would be a war declared on Mexico, and that war might actually be declared for a change instead of just engaged in with no declaration. So,
John, I'm wondering if the withdrawal of the Bureau of Land Management at the Bundy Ranch, I wonder if they had the foresight to say we could cause an innumerable amount of protesters to go to. I wonder if they even put that on their map of how to manipulate the society and to take control of it. Did they see that if there was an incident there, that would give so many more people the impetus to go to the American Springs? So this, the government's out there. Besides the camper they killed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in cold blood, and all the other murders that the government is doing through the militarization of the police departments and the military itself, violating the Posse Comitatus Act. I wonder if they saw that, look, we don't need that right now. This is a really bad time for us to pull the trigger on these protesters. And they probably would have thought that, just like the police said, well, we saw a 3-inch knife in this guy's hand 15 feet away, so we shot him, So, you think that that was a part of the calculation?
I think they were becoming gradually more and more aware of the distinct possibility that this could turn into another Concord. And it very well might have. Yeah, I don't. These aren't stupid people that are up there. I think they thought that they'd just go in there and just take over. And of course, Harry Reid, to me, and this is my opinion, he looks like a little back-shooting crook anyway. There's nothing about Harry Reid that I like. He looks like a worm to me that would do absolutely anything with those little squinty eyes. I mean, this is just my opinion. I mean, not to criticize one of the Lord's creatures, but this guy just looks like a crook to me. There's nothing open about his countenance, and that his appearance combined with the words that come out of his mouth, I have no doubt that he was directly linked to this, and this was all about money again, all about money. Yeah. But what I think is the greater thing is not necessarily that it would have resulted in a coast-to-coast revolution, so to speak. No pun intended.
Right.
But that if there were those bodies in the streets that I mentioned a few paragraphs ago, and then the news came out about Reid being involved in a Chinese solar farm deal that was going to make him money, that could have splashed up all over the Democrat Party and just absolutely, reduced their numbers to insignificant numbers after these upcoming November elections. I think there are people up there that think about this stuff all the time. I mean, they got nothing else to do. So then you're not dealing with stupid people. The problem is that they think they're dealing with stupid people, and that would be us. So, I think they factored all those things in and just decided, I think this is getting a little bit out of hand. Maybe we ought to just back off because they got all the time in the world. They can come back and try it again at some point. Right. And they will. But for now, they're gone.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they will. They're already, I read several articles of the Bureau of Land Management, which, by the way, now you mentioned Harry Reid, I believe that the head of that organization was a part of Harry Reid's campaign staff. But it seems to me around the country, the BLM is kicking a lot of ranchers off the federal lands, and a lot of people's property has been taken and their assets have been seized. And by the way, I don't believe that the IRS has slowed down one bit in investigating people that do not agree with the current thrust of the Obama administration.
Oh, yes. And you know what's even more interesting, Daniel, is that it is my understanding that 86% of the real estate in Nevada is owned by the United States government. And yet, it's one of the few places where, prostitution, gambling, all those things are completely legal, So, it sort of makes you wonder, gee, with all this government ownership of property and government presence, these various bases out there and so forth, skunk works and stuff like that out there. What does it tell us that you have so much government presence and And on the other hand, you have so much vice in one state. It's just, I don't know, it kind of gets my attention. I'm not sure I answered your question, but.
No, but it was interesting, though. All right, let's see what else and then another question, going back to Harry Reid, one might ask, if you work for the government, you're an employee of the government, how is he accumulating millions of dollars of wealth?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? I understand the majority of people in Congress, that's both, that's the Senate and the House, are millionaires. First time in the history of the country. The majority of people in Congress are millionaires. So I'm sure it's through campaign contributions and all sorts of little, money moves around. I mean, even the easiest example I can give you is back in my dad was the world's greatest salesman. And he said that frequently when you had a client, magically a new set of tires or a case of Crown or, Jack Black or something, Johnny Walker, something, would show up in his garage. It's just sort of a little enticement. And a lot of us have seen that movie, The Aviator, when Mr. Hughes went up against Brewster over the civil aeronautics bill. And he said, well, apparently you don't know very much about the aircraft business because, we routinely entertain military dignitaries. And, would you consider it as a bribe? And he goes, well, yeah, I suppose you'd call it a bribe. Said, well, would you like to explain that? He says, well, I mean, this is common, but if you tell me it's against the law, I'll quit doing it. Well, if somebody doesn't tell them that it's against the law to accept the money that they're accepting, then all of these people are going to continue to take the money. If there's no mechanism in place to stop them, then why should they? Mm-hmm. I mean, and starting with these lobbyists. I mean, you go from public office and become a lobbyist. And what do you do then? You take money from the entities that you're lobbying for, and you get more money if you manage to get their agenda pushed forward. So I don't know really how you defeat that. That's the old, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's a long-standing maxim. I'm not sure it's ever going to go away, but at least we can regulate it if we pay attention to it.
Well, also these are the same people that create laws, and those laws could either increase the value of certain stocks or decrease the value of certain stocks. And of course, in the writing process of those laws, they would know where to invest. So they're to me, they're just a bunch of insider traders. All right, here's a question from somebody in the live chat. John says, are these the end times written of in the book of Revelations, you think?
I believe there is a very, very strong possibility that borders on likelihood that it is the end of days. Because it's not only what we're dealing with down here on this planet, but I have to tell you that technology and our expansion out into space, the extraterrestrial component, which is no longer woo-woo, and really hasn't been since the 1952 UFO flap, they call it, where Washington, D.C. was practically invaded by flying saucers. I mean, it was. All you have to do is go to your favorite search engine, Bing's a good one, Google, whatever, and just type in there, President Truman mentions flying saucers, and it'll come right up. It's only about 15 seconds long, and just look at the president's face and listen to the words that are coming out of his mouth, and you know that he knows. And there's a fellow named Wilbur Allen. He's about 7 blocks away from the White House. He photographs UFOs every night. In fact, he sent me one yesterday, another picture of one. So there is. Look, I believe me, I know how this sounds, but I'm just going to say it because I believe it. There is an extraterrestrial influence on this planet, and I suspect that we are not only working with alien technology, but I'm almost convinced, within a few percentage points, that we are working with the aliens themselves. Too many of these craft have been spotted. Some of them are like 1.5 miles wide. Yeah. There are all kinds of things that have been photographed by various NASA apparati, and then as soon as they're up there, they get pulled down. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if it's bogus, why not leave them up there? Oh, it's just it's just an atomic particle hit the lens, or it's just this or that or the other. But everything from the sun divers to this big craft that looked like it was parked out there with this gigantic looking hose that looked like it was connected to the sun. It's like, it's just a little camera anomaly and no big deal. But when they pull them down, then that suggests that there's something to that. And too many people have been sickened by some kind of strange ionizing radiation from exposure to the craft. If these things were not real, why would the United States government have the extraterrestrial exposure law? Now, I happen to narrate a program called Unsealed Alien Files, and they don't pay me anything except for the session. They don't pay me to mention the show or anything like that, so I'm not a shill for the show. But I'm telling you, that program is, in my opinion, the best UFO show out there. It's just a 30-minute long program, and a lot of things get reintroduced that have been talked about before, just to kind of keep the whole momentum of everything taken together rolling forward. But I'll tell you what, there's some stuff in there that's undeniable from up there at Malmstrom Air Force Base. Had a bunch of nuclear-tipped missiles deactivated. Then 2 weeks later, another base had their missiles deactivated. Then they were reactivated. And then, gosh, I can't call the name of the Russian place right now. I'll think of it in a minute. Starts with a D, I know that much. Donetsk. Wow. I believe that's where these people were freaking out. These orbs, these light orbs, show up at this nuclear missile defense base, and they're going, wow, look at that. That's cool. So they go back inside the facility, and before long, it starts counting down to launch, and they're just losing their minds for 15 seconds because they can't override it, they can't shut it down, they can't abort the launch, nothing. These missiles are fixing to leave. And it starts counting down the last few seconds, and it just stops, and the system's all reset, and they go back outside, probably to throw up, and the orbs are gone. I mean, there are just countless stories, these orbs showing up. They seem to be task orbs, and whenever they show up, they'll scramble a fighter pilot over Tehran some years ago, and they said, intercept this thing. So he goes, well, okay, whatever, the language he was speaking. And as soon as he locked his targeting system on there, the panel went dead. So he backed off, and they reapproached the thing. His panel went dead again. Every time he came near it or began to approach it, his panel would go dead. When he backed off or the thing outran him, panel would come back on. So, look, there's no doubt that these things exist. There's thousands and thousands of witnesses, in particularly South America, not to mention the United States. And we know Hans Kammler was a genius. We know that this thing, Die Glocke, the Nazi bell, one looks just like it, crashed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. The Army came and got it. So, I think that we're very close to disclosure, and I think that probably, Eisenhower is supposed to have met with him 3 times in New Mexico. And so they've made a deal. Somebody's made a deal. We're not just dealing with people down here. We're dealing with stuff that is just so complex. It's just beyond imagination. But you know what? It shouldn't be depressing, Daniel. It should be exciting. We are not going to get away from new things. People say, I like change. We've got to change. But nobody really wants it. They just kind of like it to be comfortable and steady. They don't really want any drama. But, well, you got drama. Whether you want it or not, you've got drama and you've got change coming, and that's just the way it is. And you can either know you're going to die one day and let it invigorate you. Let it make you want to live to the fullest. Not go like all despondent melee and run amok, which is where that word comes from. But be excited. We can have peace. But it won't be the boring peace that you might think. It'll be the exciting piece. Now, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but it's the piece of exploration and discovery and enlightenment and an expanse of the human consciousness. And maybe we can turn loose of these savage tendencies that we have, because the lure of newer discoveries makes us forget all of this stuff. We forget. Why play when you can have a lightsaber? Why would you want to play with sticks and stones? And maybe that's where we need to be mentally and spiritually, and realize that, let me tell you what, if people would just drop $15 just to listen to 3 shows that I had this week with the following people: Loren Murray, Greg Palast, and Paul LaViolette, the scientist. preceded by Palas, the journalist, preceded by Moray, the federal nuclear whistleblower. You will learn so much with just these three shows about how the world works, why things are happening to us that are happening to us, and what is waiting for us on the other side of those clouds. It's worth everything to be able to be a part of that. And it might be like this hippie said one time, this hippie named David. It was ridiculous. Anyway, he used to walk around with this like rainbow yarn wrapped around his staff when I was at university. He'd say, let's streak down to the Scienceville. It's like, no, David, we're not doing that. But one time he said, you know, I really believe that we all get to share in everything. And I said, what do you mean, like reincarnation? He goes, yeah, and that's just the word that we know of. It might be possible that, you know, through the mind of God, you know, that we just can share in everything. And I begin to think that maybe David is right, and I hope he is, because it's such a huge universe. It'd be a shame not to be able to share in all of it. And I hope that we can. But we're here now, and we got to play this ball where it lays, and it is our duty to keep this cold civil war cold and move toward compassion and a rational society that does accommodate as many of our number as we can without changing the whole society just to accommodate a few. You know, the few can be made to, we can reach a mutual accommodation, but we got to get away from all this continual distraction and get back to what we're really supposed to be. I believe that every person needs to look inward and ask themselves, what is the mission that my Creator had for me? Does my Creator just want me to just be here and kind of take up space until I check out? Or is there something for me to do, a specific job for me to do, whatever it is? Because whether it's a small job or a big job, it's still part of the whole fabric, and therefore it is equally important.
John, let me ask you, does the existence of UFOs conflict in any way with the idea of a all-seeing, all-knowing creator being?
Not in the least, not in my mind, not at all. If anything, it validates it. Okay. Validates it even more. Because it's beyond flesh and bone. It's beyond brain and blood. There's this thing inside you called a spirit that transcends time and space, transcends everything. I asked Dr. Jonathan Fellis, he was on a Coast program with me with Dr. Phil DeFina. They were trying to rescue that little girl out there in California that they declared brain dead, and they wanted to unplug her. And we began to talk about all kinds of things. And I asked him, what is consciousness? And he said, he paused for a few seconds. He said, it is an electromagnetic phenomenon. And I said, right. And everything is electromagnetism. Not everything, but everything in our known universe is electromagnetic. I mean, even the atomic particles, proton, neutrons, and electrons, they're all held into an atom by electromagnetism. And so are the molecules. All of these things. Sight is possible. I mean, magnetic radiation electromagnetism goes from the plug on your wall to plug your toaster into, all the way up to ionizing radiation, like Fukushima, all the way up the spectrum to cosmic rays, and all of this stuff. So I said, well, if it's all electromagnetism, is this how we are part of God? We are part of the mind of God. We are a mechanism within His great creation of this enormous mechanism. And he paused again. He said, well, yes, I suppose that's possible. And I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember it verbatim, but we are part of everything. Individual people are much more important. It doesn't matter if you have a shiny set of brand new crowns or if you got green on your teeth. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter if you're short, tall, fat, skinny. It doesn't matter what color you are. None of that. You are a unique component within this universe, a unique component. And you should love your neighbor and also love yourself because you are important. You may not feel like it. There may be some organic things going on in you, and maybe those things can be addressed, and largely they can be addressed. But what's most important for every human being is their intention. And I believe that that's what the Almighty is looking for. It's not necessarily your actions, not necessarily your actions, particularly your good works. I mean, you're not going to impress God with anything. He created the universe. What are you going to impress him with? Nothing. It's your intention. What is your intention? People say, oh, well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, yes, but well thought out intentions. And then the intentions are just things that you want to do. But then after that, you have to do it. So you begin with intention. What is your intention? And then let your action follow that. Now you're in the groove. Now you're doing some good work. Otherwise, you're just sitting on the couch observing. And I do not believe that's a good thing. I believe that wasting time is, as my favorite television preacher, Dr. Charles Stanley said, it's a sin. It's a sin against God to waste time. Time is a gift that's been given to you. Don't waste it. Do not waste it. So there's rant number 3, Daniel.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, I don't know how many we got. We'll see how many more rants you got. Well, and now you're touching on sort of metaphysical issues here. So somebody wrote into the live chat, says, John, are we going to see our pets again when we die?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question, but you know what? I have noticed that nothing is taken away that something else isn't given. And nothing is given without a little something being taken away. So from my limited perspective on things and not being able to just go, hold on, I'll call him and get the answer to that question. I mean, I'd love a special line that went right to the great one, but you have to do that through prayer. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't see your pets.
All right.
I mean, he made them all. He made all these creatures. Mm-hmm. So why not?
Yeah, I'm with you. Why not? All right, this is from Betty in New Mexico. Have you heard anything about the formation of common law grand juries that formed in all 50 states?
Not a thing. Nothing. And I'm sorry, but I'm just going to give you the truth. And the answer is no. I haven't heard a thing about it, but now that you've mentioned it, I'll get into it.
Okay. Right on.
Now, common law what?
Common law. I can go back up here. I see common law grand juries, and I believe that's to indict somebody for crimes against the Constitution, I would think.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what. It sounds like something I need to look at. Currently, only the United States retains grand juries, although some other common law jurisdictions formerly employed them. A body of persons, no, that's a common law grand jury. Well, select and convened upon order of a judge to inquire into and return indictments of crimes, common law grand jury. Just that name, I've never heard it referred to that way, but maybe this is what, who knows? My limited knowledge of this is what all of them could be called. But I'm not seeing anything that makes it look special so far. But this is just a cursory internet search, but I'm not getting anything rewarding out of this so far.
I'm wondering, every time there's an attempt to litigate the existence or non-existence of President Obama's birth certificate, besides the forged Photoshop document that probably still remains on the WhiteHouse.gov website, it seems like in almost every case the judge says that the litigant does not have standing to challenge the president or anything about him. I'm wondering who does.
A RICO action does. And that's all I'm going to say about it. RICO, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations. Yeah, a lady came on the program on Caravan to Midnight and goes by Butter Dezillion, of all things. I said, well, am I supposed to call you Ms. Dezillion, or can I call you Butter? And she laughed, but she's trying to stay on the down low. She's a mom. Husband's a preacher, trying to raise her kids and so forth. I'll tell you, go to Butter D-E-Zillion, Butter Dezillion, and look at her photographs of what was going on during that plane crash that supposedly caused acute arrhythmia in Loretta Fuddy, the Hawaiian health director.
Yeah. And
this is going to open a whole Pandora's box for your consideration, because nothing about that event makes any sense. Right. And if you listen to, again, I'm shamelessly hyping my program, but I did a long interview with her. And there's a thing called Subud, S-U-B-U-D. When you look it up, it looks like, connect with higher spirituality, But, I understand even Mr. Hughes was concerned about Subud. And more to the point, it appears that Miss Fuddy was a part of that because the guy who resigned, who occupied the position of Hawaiian Health Director before she, didn't really even know why he was resigning. He and said so. He just said, I don't really know why I'm resigning, but I am. And she stepped in, validated the birth certificate, and now is either on the underside of the green or has been spirited away and is now sitting on a beach somewhere having a drink with a little umbrella.
Mm-hmm. With
you
the
know,
new
those little umbrellas in them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it doesn't look good at all. You're going to see people in the water that don't really belong there. And you contrast these photographs that she has a huge collection of with the pixelated photographs that the mainstream news media showed us. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start asking questions again. Look, one thing is for sure. Nobody knows who Barack Obama really is. But we're getting close. And if you want to see some stuff, look up, now again, this is getting into some ugly territory, but his mom was a gal named Stanley Ann Dunham, Dunham. You look up there and you can see her top, you can see her bottom. I mean, there's a little soft porn thing going on there. And then you go to your search engine, type in Frank Marshall Davis and Barack Obama images and look at them side by side. And you tell me who Barack Obama looks more like, Frank Marshall Davis or Barack Obama Sr. I mean, people have said, who have come on CTM, that there are a total of 6 names that are associated with our president. And then, well, just this last week of programs reveals in great detail exactly how a man who came out of nowhere was financed and put in a position of becoming a senator, and then how he went from state senator to President of the United States. And it's a wild, wild ride. And I tell you, I checked every detail of those stories that I've been told over this past week by Greg Palast and Loren Murray. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all I could say was wow. And I sound like a moron after about the 5th time I've said that during the course of 1 hour. But that's all I could say was this is beyond anything that I thought was possible to occur without somebody shining a light on it. It's just beyond anything I thought was possible. So, which gives me an idea of how closely controlled this whole operation of getting him into the White House was. I mean, look at Mitt Romney. To me, Mitt Romney just folded his tent at that second debate and it was over. He did not ask 2 questions. Now, wait a minute, Candy. I have the transcript right here. He said, I'm paraphrasing, the United States will never roll over for any kind of a terroristic threat. Okay? He did not call an act of terrorism. I got the transcript right here. And the other thing that he didn't ask was, well, wait a minute. If you're nationalizing, if you're bailing out the automobile industry, bailed out General Motors, now you want to push this Obamacare plan on us. I mean, that's socialistic. Is socialism the path that you're trying to take us on, Mr. President? Just yes or no. Is socialism, in your view, a good direction for America to go? But he didn't ask either one of those questions because he was told not to. Now, here's something else. How does a company with $21 billion in debt continue to operate?
Government financing.
That's what I'm thinking, and that would be Clear Channel Communications.
Whoa.
And one of the 2 companies that currently, effectively own Clear Channel Communications would be Bain Capital, and that would be Mr. Romney's company.
That's a shocking coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all, I wondered why they even put up McCain as the, you talk about getting somebody in office. That was guaranteed when old man Cracker, I call him a dried up cracker, they put him up against a young, hip looking dude with an iPhone, and it's like day and night. It's like this guy was not even supposed to be on the map. There's no way he would have got elected by putting him up. So that part, you think that was part of the plan too?
Yeah, absolutely I do. It's like, look, I admire John McCain's service. I'm sorry that he had to go through all that hell that he went through in a North Vietnamese prison camp like that. I'm not happy with Miss Fonda. She's a girl, I know. She said she's sorry, I know. It's like, I'm sorry, Janie, but sorry's not going to get it. I'm sorry. Some things, once you do, cannot be undone. You're just going to have to live with it. Yeah, you were young, you were dumb, and you were in North Vietnam, and you were wearing a Hanoi Jane shirt, and you ratted out John McCain. when he tried to get a message back home as he was having the stuffing beat out of him every day of his life. But I have not liked what Mr. McCain has done by working both sides of the aisle. Now, as it may turn out, maybe that's the only thing that he could do. I don't know, but it doesn't look good to me. And so to put him up there, I mean, he had one moment in his speech in '08. It looked kind of good. Fight with me for our beautiful America. I mean, that was somewhat inspirational. The rest of the speech was totally lame. It's totally lame. And then Sarah Palin, who I think is a good-looking gal, she's a good governor. She's I think she's fine. I don't hear offensive. The left wing just went crazy on her. But she spent all of her time talking about how McCain, he's a maverick. She spent all of her time standing up there, looking pretty good, and trying to prop up John McCain, and it didn't work, not at all. So, and the names that were hurled at her, and I'm just wondering when I mentioned the president's mom, who dumped him when he was about 10 years old, is my understanding, which is sad anytime that happens. I just wonder what kind of grist for the left-wing mill, that kind of thing, might have made were it a conservative candidate whose mom was kind of a soft porn girl.
Oh.
You remember, you know what I mean? Remember all that, the big furor over George W. Bush might have inhaled a little toot, a little blow, a little nose candy, a little Peruvian marching powder.
Right.
Oh yeah, that was just horrible. But you got pictures of Barry sitting there just toking away on a big old doobie. No problem whatsoever. And here's something else. Speaking of doobies, did you know George Soros has sunk $80 million since 1994 in trying to legalize dope in this country?
Yeah, I mean it's obvious because you have to be high to vote for Obama or even a Democrat for that matter. So yeah. It goes. Yeah. Back
in the day, that stuff had the reverse effect on me. I would have been too paranoid to vote for him. 40 years ago when I was a kind of a dumbass kid, I was like, I don't think this is good. I'm just too creeped out by everything around me. So I don't know. I may have fled the polls in fear if I'd been under the influence of that. It's not for everybody.
No, yeah. Of course, he's trying to. That goes to in our first hour, we're talking about sort of the undoing of America's moral compass in its base, and there seems to be a wholesale effort as part of it seems like a larger plan to demoralize the country, to destabilize it, to break the social morals, the mores, so that many other things can be brought in its place that would be advantageous to the control of the population.
Daniel? There has been a concerted effort, but I got to tell you, the people are pushing back. There are more and more moms staying at home to raise their kids. Now, because they may be college educated and because they may choose to stay home and not enter the workplace because they don't really feel like they can have it all, they can't have a full-time career and be a full-time mother, they may not qualify for Social Security. They may not qualify for it at all. They may spend their entire life, raising decent children in a solid, stable home and not qualify for one dime of Social Security money. And that's wrong. That's wrong. But mothers around this, all over this country are deciding, you know what? Yeah, it is wrong. And guess what? I don't care. I'm staying home, and I'm going to raise my children, and that is that. Because I'm telling you, and I want to state this for the record, the women are stronger. The women are stronger. From childbirth to what they have to deal with from us, the dumbasses who make A-bombs and commit children to war. The women aren't doing that. It's the men that are doing that. The women are trying to clean up the mess that we make. And I really mean that. And if that sounds like I'm sucking up to the girls, well then, so be it. Because it's like, I think it was either Carol Burnett, I think it was Carol Burnett said, childbirth, let me tell you about childbirth. What is it like? Take your fingers and grab your lips and try and pull them over your head. That's what childbirth is like. I mean, just starting with that. They're smart. They understand stuff, and they look at us like, yeah, the guys. What is up with the guys? I really think it's turning around. But see, that's those stories don't get any play. Nothing that's good that's going on in the country by way of pushing back against what I believe is an attempt at global communism. None of the stories about people pushing back against this are being aired on the mainstream news networks. Hardly at all. I mean, I'm not going to say none of them are. It might have popped up a point or two at, I don't know, between 3 and 4 a.m. in every time zone, but none of the good things that are happening in this country are being reported. You got to rely on you got to rely on InfoWars, programs like yours, the Hagman and Hagmans, and these various alternative news outlets. That's where the real stuff's coming from. And going back to your point earlier about what about this control of the internet? Well, for every measure, there is a countermeasure. And if it means that we have to, at some point, go to a private, closed, offshore internet communications channel, well, then that's just what we'll do. But we're not going to stop. We're not going to be intimidated. And as long as we have our strength and we have our breath and we're alive in this realm, we're going to continue to push against this. So get used to it. If you want to take us over and make us slaves, well, we're not going to go easy. You may win, but you're going to know you've been in one, and you're going to wonder who won when it's over, because you're going to be tore up from the floor up. We will not go quietly into that good night now or ever, unless you, through your chemtrails and everything else, manage to get us all high on aerosol dispersed LSD, or you've managed to poison enough of us or dumb enough of us down through fluoride and all these other chemicals that you put in our food. Yeah, maybe so, but even then, we're taking countermeasures against us, against that, as you take your measures against us. And that's another thing that I would say. You gotta get the fluoride out of your water. You gotta get the chlorine out of your water. Do not eat GMO foods. According to, I can't even remember who said it. Yes, I do. Richard Allen Miller. He said the corn's gone. He goes, the corn's gone. It's virtually all GMO. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what Richard Allen Miller said. And so you have to be very careful about what you eat. And you must understand this. Without proper nutrition, you cannot even think straight. You have to do it. You're going to have to work as hard on proper nutrition for yourself and the ones you love and care about, your families, as you did in the old days, where it took all day to come up with enough to even make a dinner at the end of the day. You're going to have to work on it. It's not going to be a question of driving into your favorite fast food place and grabbing something nutritious. What you're going to wind up grabbing is something that'll harm you and shorten your lifespan to, I don't know, 55, maybe 60 years old, because that's what they'd really like. They'd like to suck about 25 or 30 years of productivity out of you, and then they want you to die. They do not want to carry you through Social Security into your 80s and 90s. They don't want that at all. They want to suck the productivity out of you, and they want you to get out of here. So watch out, because it's all over from every angle.
Well, I tell you what, John, I've converted to non-GMO food myself and gone organic, but my motivation is it's spite for Obamacare, because I'm never going to use it, and I'm not signing up for it, and I won't need it.
No, and you know what? All people have to do, here's the thing, Daniel. All people have to do is just say, no, we're not doing it. Well, but no, we're not doing it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to jail 200 million people? Then what are you going to do? Then what? You're not going to do that. Look, they cannot take your faith in your God, in your fellow man, in yourself. You have to give it over. And if you don't give it over, they cannot prevail.
Wow, well said on that one.
Yeah. Well, I've been on the planet for a few decades now, and I've observed and observed and observed, and somehow I'm just grateful to the Lord for giving me a skill. Otherwise, as I like to say, I'd be the slowest, worst waiter on the floor of your least favorite restaurant if He hadn't enabled me to do something. And I guess what I've been led to do is just teach, be taught, allow myself to be taught, and in as much as I can, teach myself to not just see, but observe what's really happening. Going back to Dr. Judy Wood, who wrote this book, What Happened to the Towers. Right. What a delightful interview with her. I absolutely love this woman because she's bright and she's strong, and she's thorough, and she knows what she's doing. Because when I would go off into another area, she'd go, wait. Now you're getting into the how and the why. Let's just stick with what actually happened. I don't know, okay. And one of the best questions about 9/11, as we yank the wheel and go this way.
Right on.
Did you see 110 floor or 105, 100 something stories worth of rubble at the bottom after those buildings came down? No.
No, it disappeared.
But you did see them turn to dust, and
Right.
they did.
Mm-hmm.
And Judy Wood she's a hardcore scientist. I mean, this woman knows her stuff. And this book is about 3 inches thick. And by the time you go through this and you listen to her talk, you're going to go, well, wait a minute. Now, I asked her at one point, I said, Judy, what was in the dust? Her response, everything was in the dust. Chocolate, steel particles, paper, everything was in the dust. And if you see some of the photographs of the building coming down from the top, you see that it literally bursts into dust.
Right.
Now, my deal was like, that looks like controlled demolition to me. Oh, it was controlled, all right. But Judy said it was directed energy. She never did say a directed energy weapon. She said it was directed energy. I said, so you're saying that those buildings discorporated? And she said, I say disassociated, but I like yours too. And I said, well, I think I got it from Robert Heinlein. But yeah, they discorporated. They literally, and it's weird, some of the things that happened. Some of the people that were insulated against this directed energy, they were fine, while everything around them literally vanished into dust. It's weird. This book is well worth reading, and that interview is well worth hearing, because she was something special. I really mean it.
Do you think we're going to see another 9/11 type event, John?
Well, the Vedics say if a thing happens once, it may never happen again. But if it happens twice, it most certainly will happen a third time. So we've had Pearl Harbor, and we've had the Gulf of Tonkin, and we've had 9/11. So, yeah, I do. I don't know what form it'll take, but
did you catch up?
When President Obama said, well, I'm not concerned about it. I can't remember what he said he was not interested in, but I do remember that he said he was more interested in a nuclear event happening in New York City.
Right.
And I can't remember who said this. I wish I could quote her. No, it was Judy Wood. She said, they always tell you what they're going to do before they do it, because they don't want the interpretation left to chance.
Whoa.
And I thought, And so I thought, well, he just said that he was concerned about a nuclear event in New York City, so that's what I'm watching. Mm-hmm. You can be sure that whatever it is, if they would orchestrate, with quotes around it, would orchestrate something like what happened on 9/11/01, then the next one will be even more dramatic and much more awful.
Well, does this sort of coordinate with the purging of the nuclear soldiers guarding our nukes? In January, there was 90, I think it was 95 that were dismissed, and just recently 9 more. And they said the reason was cheating on a stupid test. This purging that's going on, some have speculated that Obama's trying to take control of the nukes. You got anything on that?
Wouldn't surprise me in the least. I don't know. I mean, the plain fact of the matter is that I don't know, but I will say that it would not surprise me, not at all. What kind of a president, what kind of a person, let alone a president, would say, hey, I'm pretty good at killing people? Yeah. If somebody will say something like that, in my view, they're capable of anything. Why? How could somebody say something like that?
Well, I thought you were getting ready to quote Valerie Jarrett. She said, if you're not with us, you're against us, and you're going to pay. And certainly a lot of people have paid, and I believe a lot of people have paid with their life.
I do too. And I predict a lot more people will pay for it with their lives too. But you know what? Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. That's what Zapata said, and I think Zapata was right, and I agree with him completely. So, to heck with those fellas and the legions of morons that support them. They're going to lose. Just remember, Father is watching, and he's only going to let this go so far. I really believe that. I really do. I don't care if I sound like a a Bible-thumping Southerner. First of all, I'm a Midwesterner, and secondly, I never thump my Bible. I carry it lovingly, and I make sure that I don't bend any of its pages. I don't thump it ever, but I do read it. And I've found that the greatest scientists have all gone from agnostic to a very strong belief in the Creator, in God. And so that's just how it is. I can't explain it. It's stated in Scripture. He thinks about things we don't think about. He does things that we can't do. You know, it's a different deal. He's the Creator. He created everything. It says in Scripture, I, the Lord, create the light and the darkness. I, the Lord, create good and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So, what we get to do is deal with it. Just deal with it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, those are good words there, and you certainly are strong in your faith there in your presentation of it. You know, there is this wholesale effort to, as I said earlier, to undermine the morals of this country, which seems to be part and parcel of the whole scheme in general. But what's coming in is some sort of evil, and you know, it goes on to what I would consider sacrificial rites in some of these major death scenes that we've been seeing around the country for, like Columbine and the Sandy Hook shooting. And by the way, let me ask you something. What's your take on Columbine and Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing, about the alleged crisis actors appearing in all three places?
Well, Columbine, I believe that was a real event. And it's my understanding that they remodeled the school and so forth. As far as Sandy Hook is concerned, I also interviewed one Wolfgang Halbig. Mm-hmm. He was a German who is an American, and he believes in America, and he loves America, and he was threatened with arrest if he continued to ask questions, because nothing about Sandy Hook looks right. In fact, this one guy looking all upset, I can't at this moment, I don't have the notes because, anyway, one of the fathers that supposedly lost a child up there was talking about there was no 911 call, and there was a 911 call, and it was this guy who was saying that there was no 911 call. And I do remember that one of the men there, the blonde-haired guy, looked like about 5'9", 5'10", comes. He's talking. He's very affable, talking with people backstage. And as he approaches the lectern, he becomes sadder and sadder and sadder and sadder until finally he's got his sad face on when he reaches the lectern and he starts talking. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that people have different ways of showing their grief. This doesn't look like grief to me. This looks like staged. And people keep showing up that seem to be getting in and out of character like that. As far as the Boston bombing thing is concerned, let's look at that for a minute. They had already talked to these guys, and then the bomb was made out of some kitchen appliance. And then I don't know if this is true or not, but they look all over the neighborhoods, pointing guns at everybody, running people out of their houses. They're in their underwear and pointing machine guns at everybody, and just real bad to the bone bunch of warrior guys out there pointing their guns. Real brave men pointing machine guns at unarmed civilians. That's bravery. That's courage. But I understand they missed the street completely where the kid was found in the boat. And then they got this bogus suicide letter or some sort of a letter inside there that he just, he's all shot up, but he takes the time to write this letter. Right. And where is he now? One more time. He's not dead, but where is he?
He appears to be off grid.
Don't you think? And another thing that just dogged me and dogged me. Let's go back to Sandy Hook for a second. So there's WABC, I believe it was, got their news copter up there streaming live video of this guy running through the woods. You know, he's got the gray and white and black camo pants and a black hoodie. And he's running through the woods. Now the cops have got him on the ground, all that. And the next thing you see is this cat is sitting in the front seat of a police car, which when's the last time you saw a suspect put in the front seat of a police car, especially after a bunch of kids supposedly got shot up. Mm-hmm. And now one of the TV news people has got a camera in his face, and he's going, I didn't do it. Which begs the question, you didn't do what? I still didn't. I mean, the whole thing just looks like rubbish. Let me tell you something, folks. They want your guns. They're worried about you, and they know you're not going to give them over. That's why you keep hearing UN, UN, UN. I think we should tell the UN to go to blazes. We're not going to conform to anything. We don't care what you think about our country. And you really don't want to know what we think about you. Because if you did, you'd disband on your own account. That's what you do. You're not going to tell us what to do. We don't care how many Soroses are out there. The United Nations, made up of such luminaries as Kofi Annan, who was on the take, and his son was too, and other people like that. Oh, I'm sure Barack will probably wind up being the secretary of the whole UN. And I think that they ought to move that to some third world latrine of a country and let them spread their beneficence and goodness all over that scorched, blasted part of the earth, and just leave normal people alone, people who see them for what they are. The United Nations should not be permitted to tell us what to do under any circumstances. This is our country. But, oh, man, I bet I'm getting on more and more lists as I go along here, Daniel, because what do you mean you believe in the Constitution? You're a patriot? You believe in America? Well, you're a very dangerous person. You need to be institutionalized. I mean, that's the idiocy that we're headed toward.
Man, you've got to be right up there on those lists, too. I've always said, if I'm on those lists, give me a room with a view or whatever, because, I went to catered service in the FEMA camp, whatever they got for me. I'm not scared of them. And, we've had so many high-profile guests on this show, and it seems that when they come on, some technical glitch usually happens. You can almost hear people locking on, and I'm not going to change what I say because of that. I'm just going to keep saying it and name names and dates and whatever, because I agree with what you said. It's better to die standing up than survive on your knees, and that's just where the government wants you to. That's why there's so many more people on welfare and the Obama phones and the payoffs and the bribes and the special passes for Obamacare. It's trying to bribe everybody to stay on his side, but really all they're doing is just paying for their own incarceration.
Cockroaches survive. Human beings are supposed to succeed, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, sure, a cockroach can survive anything. So can a coward. Coward is somebody that will do absolutely anything it takes to survive for just a little while longer. There's no sense of duty or honor or any of those things. There's no sense of sacrifice, and certainly not any self-sacrifice involved with those people. There are a lot of them out there.
Somehow I thought you were getting ready to name Hillary and Benghazi in the same sentence.
Yeah, isn't that convenient? Well, I thought from the beginning that was an arms. I don't know why. It just popped into my mind, like many things do, and I just thought, that looks to me like an arms deal gone bad. That's what that looks like. And I've heard various people that are supposed to be authorities tell me, and they really didn't want to go on the program and say it. But even though they seemed like they look, just because you were a Nazi did not make you safe from the other Nazis, and just because you were in the military or you with Special Operations Command or Special Operations Group, it doesn't matter. You don't necessarily know the straight story. That's just like saying, well, not only did 500 people, but also 2 policemen were there that witnessed the UFO. It's like, oh, well, if 2 policemen were there, then it must be true, right? No. Policemen don't know the whole story any more than any other citizen does. But, policemen did it, much like what we see on the mainstream news media. Well, it's on television, and this very expensive operation just broadcasts this information. Doesn't that have any credibility with you? Not necessarily. So, you just believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see, and you'll be on your way to at least getting a glimpse of the truth. Getting to the whole truth, that's going to be a lot tougher, but at least you can begin to get some dots, get them up on your canvas, and then begin to draw a picture. And it's important that you do. And, there are 2 ways to do this. You can either let all this information drive you nuts, keep you walking on the side of your head every day of your life, all day long, or not. You can just be a calm, rational observer and just store away what you have. Keep your brain firing on all 6 cylinders. Keep it sharp, and then make your decisions and help those around you as you can. You don't have to let this stuff beat you down and depress you. That's part of their plan. They want you to be depressed. They want you to be so depressed that you give up. They want you to think that this thing is so monstrous and so unstoppable that you might as well just give up and get with the program because you're not going to get your way. You're not going to win. But that's part of the plan.
That reminded me of the Cloward and Piven plan to overwhelm the system until you just frankly just give up and accept it.
Well, that's it. And the easiest thing to do is to, well, look, let's put it this way. Not every German citizen was a Nazi. But all of the citizens were punished by the end of that deal. The cities were destroyed. Dresden was firebombed. You know what happens when a city is firebombed? It creates a firestorm. In other words, that fire in the center of the city was so hot that it wanted to feed itself more, and it becomes like a perpetual destruction machine. It develops winds by pulling air in to feed that fire. It pulls in enough air to make 300-mile-an-hour winds, pulling everything, pulling trees out of the ground and pulling it right into the center of the fire. That's what happened to Dresden. As a result, a few people called the Nazis and the Nazi Party. Now, that's some serious clout. And people have said, I understand Aleister Crowley. I thought it was Aleister Crowley, but I keep hearing people say Crowley, so maybe it is. Visited with Hitler. And Hitler asked him, are you of the dark side? And Crowley said, well, let's put it this way. If I were of the light, you wouldn't want to talk to me. So, and you look at all this stuff they had, the death's head stuff for the SS and painting skull and crossbones on everything and strange runes that they had on the side of Die Glocke, the Nazi bell, that was quite a serious machine. Some people think it's an actual time machine. It very well could be. I don't know, but I know that those people were extraordinarily advanced, just all over the place. Our B-2 stealth bomber comes from a 1937 design by the Horton brothers, the H-09. It was a flying wing. Looks almost exactly like it. Minor differences, that's all. The F-86 Sabre jet that was featured in the Korean conflict. That's Willie Messerschmitt's design. And the MiGs that it was shooting at, and which were shooting at it, that's Kurt Tank's design. That's from Focke-Wulf, famous aircraft company Focke-Wulf. And so they had some connection with the dark side. They really did. The hardcore Nazi technicians and technologists. They really did. Everything from their uniforms and the rituals and so forth, and the runes on their crafts and so forth. So there's something to it. I mean, evil exists. Symbology is important to all of those things. They all play into things. The swastika was put on Christmas cards, holiday cards in the early 30s and before. Even houses in my neighborhood. I remember one had a swastika that was actually formed out of brick within the structure of the brick house. But they twisted that and turned it into something else. It used to be a sign, I think it's an East Indian sign of good fortune, good health, good something. The Nazis turned it around and decided to use it for their own purposes. Anyway, you started to say something. I interrupted you.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say, the Nazis went on a hunt for artifacts, religious artifacts that they believed would give them power and especially to win the war. So, and you were saying how brilliant they were. Of course, there was a big scramble for the Nazi scientists after the war, but do you believe that they actually tapped into the dark side, that they were planning? And if so, why didn't the dark side help them win that war if that was indeed beneficial to them?
Well, as Merlin said in that old movie Excalibur, there never really is, have we defeated evil, Merlin? He said, well, there never really is one without the other. I mean, are not the things that we did the Japanese did horrible things to the people in China, horrible things to the people in Nanking. It's terrible. It's still all over the net. They run around chopping off heads and gutting people and everything else. Well, so we decided to drop a couple of A-bombs on them. So did we not return evil with evil? Well, sure we did. So some of these things, I believe, are just written. I believe that in the end, it is not evil that prevails. I believe that evil can be defeated. It can be defeated by the forces of good. But you can't relax after that, because evil is going to rebound and come at you stronger and in a different form, with a different technique, different weaponry, different everything. It'll be the same thing all over again. It'll just be easier for them to destroy things next time, and it'll be more difficult to defeat them next time. But the defeat inevitably comes. But hasn't it been said that for evil to take root and flourish, all that's required is that good people do nothing? So you got to stay in the game, or that will happen. But your question was, why didn't the devil help him win? Well, because the devil's not going to win. That's what's so amazing about that one that we call Satan. He knows he's going to lose, but he doesn't care, because there's such hubris there, such an indescribably huge ego trip that he doesn't even care. In other words, he's drunk on his own PR and just keeps rolling no matter what. The forces of light. Father's going to win. He's going to win. But look, when Martin Bormann came to Adolf Hitler and said, Adolf, we're not going to make it, you know that. And Adolf goes, yeah, I know it. So Martin says, well, look, give me the power to make a commercial victory out of this military defeat. Adolf told him, do what you got to do. Well, did they surrender when it became obvious that fighting a war on two fronts was not going to cut it? No, they staved it off as long as they could until they were overwhelmed from the west and the east. That's Satan. That's what Satan will do too. He'll continue doing this thing until he's overwhelmed and defeated. That's just what happens. He's not going to give up and go, listen, I've decided I'm not going to be evil anymore. I'm getting rid of my red union suit. I'm taking off these horns. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. In fact, I'm going to figure out some way to suicide myself. I'm not sure if a fallen angel can suicide himself. I may be an eternal being. I don't know, but I'm going to give it a try, because I've been a very bad boy and I'm quitting. And y'all all have a nice, peaceful, good life, and everything's fine. And I hope Father will forgive me. He's not going to do that. Not based on what I know about him through reading the scripture. And that's all I have to base this on, other than just intuition and just gut feeling. I'm not like the oracle. I'm not sure I would want to be, but that's those words that I've spoken are words that I believe. And they're subject to, modification, improvement, and change. But the basic tenets of what I've spoken as we talk tonight is, I think they're pretty much immutable.
You were describing somebody who is drunk with their own power and works off the basis of lies and is deceiving themselves. And I thought you were talking about the president. I thought a remarkable correlation there. So anyway, John, we're getting near the end of the broadcast here. I've got your website up in the background. Let's get the listeners and viewers here over there. What is it they can find on that website for you?
You will find a button to sign up. You'll find news articles and news links in there. You don't have to sign up to get our newsletter. I write it myself, and I don't, I'm not that great of a writer, but I write one every month. And in these news links, you'll see a section called Red Alerts. If you will go to caravantomidnight.com, don't use any numbers, don't leave the MIDNIGHT, just the words, no NITE, none of that. You'll see a document that we were asked to make public from Dr. Kawamoto. He's in his 90s now. I spoke with him in Japan. That was a little bit of a chore getting through to him, but I did. Sharp as a tack. He was put in charge of restoring Japan's highway system after World War II. After that, he built their first refinery and hooked him up with an oil deal. I don't remember the country. But he was also tasked with coming to the United States, and he became friends with Dr. Alvin Weinberg. And Dr. Weinberg had, they were in tears when they met over the whole nuclear radiation split atom fission deal. But Japan saw America was getting into this nuclear power, and they wanted to do it too. So they sent Kawamoto over there to check it out. And he came back, and you'll see the letter that he asked us to publish, where he told his government, under no circumstances should we pursue this. It's entirely too dangerous. It will result in something horrible happening, and it has, because as a result of the meltdowns there at Fukushima, I'm afraid they've destroyed Japan. Now, the human being as resilient as it is, may be able to turn into some sort of a super being as a result of overcoming this exposure to ionizing radiation. But at this point in time, I doubt it. I think they may have killed the whole country. And so you'll see that letter. You'll see other links that will take you to interesting stories. We have interesting products on there too that deal with radiation Geiger counters and water purification systems, food, and on the lighter side of things, some extraordinarily groovy T-shirts and mouse pads and stuff, right. Mugs and stuff like that, and it's a good resource. And I think people will enjoy it. And again, the subscription service is, we just do this because I really felt that now there's a chance that Caravan to Midnight may go to terrestrial radio, but I have avoided this for two reasons. One is I don't want to be influenced by sponsors or by corporations, and I won't do it. The other one is that I'm not sure that a lot of this information should be broadcast over the public airwaves, because I don't want anybody to twist off into a direction they shouldn't go, and then we wind up getting some imperial blowback from that. Whereas with a subscription service, you make it easily affordable. I mean, I think it comes down to like 25 cents a show, and as the archives build up, it's less than that, because every time anybody subscribes, they have access to all of it, of course. So there it is. But the whole idea is to just give the guests enough time to say everything that they want to without being interrupted every few minutes to where you can't even get back to what you were talking about. You lose your momentum. And at some point we may go to terrestrial radio, but I assure you if that ever happens, it will be independent stations only, and we will not be in any way, shape, or form associated with big broadcasting corporations who want to control the content. I mean, I would just as soon stay on the internet and just have the show available through the net and just stay off the public airwaves. And I don't want anything to do with the FCC. I don't want anything to do with any of those guys. So that's it,
Okay. I'll tell you what, I want to finish with this one question. This is from the UK. Again, it says, John, what is the one thing that we can all do to make the world a better place to live in?
Golly.
I'm glad I'm asking you, not me. I would say share the truth. That's what I'd say.
Recognize that you have to serve something outside yourself. Recognize that, to the best of your knowledge, you did not arrange to be here on this planet. Recognize that there is a grand creator. Recognize that I understand that much of Europe is secular. I understand that. I understand that much of Europe is actually atheist. Why? Why is that? It's because the people that were put in charge of ministering to them betrayed them. And as a result of this, Europe and many other countries around the world have suffered because the ones who ran religion, if you want to call it that, that's not really a very good word, but the ones that were trusted to give them the straight stuff, to actually help them, instead turned it toward their own ends and their own enrichment, and they betrayed enough people where now people just turn away from it. They think they don't, God, that's just an archaic, outmoded notion. Oh, please, you believe in Santa Claus too? It's like, well, I'm sorry that you're that bitter. But I would submit to you that the reason that you're that bitter is because your feelings have been hurt so badly that you're like a child who really would like to have that piece of cake there, but is so angry, perhaps even at themselves, that they refuse the cake and will not eat it. And I think we've all seen this. Come on, have your piece of pie. No, I don't want it. Of course the child wants the cake or the pie. But they're so mad and they're blaming themselves. There must be some flaw. They don't know what it is, so they just turn it all off. I would say just remember, you're not alone. You are here. You are important. And you are here at the behest of the Great One, who has told you he will never leave you alone. He will never desert you. And whom you are a part. You are far more important than you think, and you have far more power than you think. Dial in your intention and then act on it. Determine what your mission in this life is. Don't waste your time. Do what's best for you without avarice, meaning the willingness to screw somebody over to help yourself. Don't do that. But just do what's best for you. Cover your own bases first. Put your own oxygen mask on first, and then assist your neighbor, the child, the passenger next to you, or whatever. Start with yourself, and then reach out. And always remember, serve something outside yourself. Straighten your own stuff up first, then reach out and serve something outside of yourself. And commit no evil. What is evil? It is the damage to another human being on a physical, mental, or spiritual level. Don't do it. And don't participate in things that you know do those three things. Don't participate in things that you know are evil, regardless of whether or not the form it takes has better fashion sense, plays better music, wears better-looking jewelry, or drives a nicer car. And I know you know what I'm talking about. You ever notice the bad guys are always depicted with much better fashion sense? Mm-hmm. Well, why do you think that is? And it says right in the scripture, oh, yeah, the Satan, great-looking guy, dresses great. I mean, I'm making this up, but, I mean, he's a great deceiver. He appears as a being of light, but he's not. So watch out. And again, I repeat, you are far more important than you think. You could do something fantastically important just by being there. That's it.
Right on. And I'll tell you what, that's good words and a positive affirmation for the listeners and viewers out there. John, an excellent way to end the show. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Can we have you on again sometime?
Anytime you like, Daniel. It was a real pleasure to be with you, and thanks for letting me just go on, because I tend to do that.
Well, that's good too, because that's kind of what you were saying, that you're trying to create a place where your guests can just go on, and that's sometimes what you have to do. And when that happens, you get these nuggets of truth that make it all worth it, So and you know what? It's better to listen twice and speak once. So if people listen to each other a little bit more in this world, it'd be a better place as well.
Well, may God bless you, and may God bless your listeners, whether some of them believe in him or not. May he bless you anyway and bring you around.
Okay. Right on. I'll let you go, and hey, we'll try to arrange again sometime, all right?
Anytime you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, that was John B. Wells on the Edge television broadcast. This show will begin to loop here in just a few minutes, and we'll get the audio and the video extract out of there and put it into the guest's bio section, and then, of course, we'll upload this program into our YouTube channel. Next week's guest will be announced in 2 weeks. Dr. Mitchell Gibson is going to be talking about miracles, and, John B. Wells is basically saying we're all miracles in and of ourselves. And so that's awesome. In 2 weeks or 3 weeks, James Arthur Janik of Feet to Fire will be on the broadcast. If we have had somebody on the show you'd like to see, go to the edgeam.com website, click on the drop-down link that says Suggest a Guest, and we'll do our best to get them on there. Be sure to tell everybody in your contact list about the Edge Television Show, Discovering the Truth Together, every Saturday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that, thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for watching. Daniel out for the Edge. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Edge with Daniel Ott. To subscribe to The Edge newsletter, log on to theedgeam.com. That's theedgeam.com, where you can find out about our guests and topics discussed on the air. The Edge has been brought to you by EBN, the Edge Broadcasting Network, providing affordable live web streaming to the world. Visit EBN at ebnlive.net. That's ebnlive.net. Until next week, for the Edge broadcast, I'm Chris Moore. See you on the Edge.